Greetings. This is Arvat McLean of Speak, the Universe Listens. As a very young person, I always felt that I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders, having to make grown-up decisions in order to survive a life marked with physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. While my face was smiling on the outside, on the inside, I always secretly cried and felt miserable. However, over the years, I learned some gems that helped to turn my life around. I now get to live the life of my dreams, filled with love, travel, and wonderment. And I am absolutely passionate about sharing what I have learned with you. If you want to live your best life, tune in each week as I, along with some amazing guests, share these life-changing gems with you. Inspired to be more, do more, have. Greetings and welcome to today's episode of Speak, the Universe Listens. Today's topic is messages from the coronavirus. So Scott, we're talking about the coronavirus once again.
Ooh. So I imagine a lot of people there kind of getting a little tired of hearing about Corona. Mm-hmm. But just it's just a few pieces that I've been kind of hearing some fears, some misunderstandings about, and I just thought it was really important for us to just take a moment to just kind of reach out and kind of touch base on some of those types of things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because it's something that's happening to all of us, there's a message in it.
Yeah.
And so it's just so important for us to try to identify some of the messages, some messages that are personal for ourselves, as well as messages that affect the global community.
Yeah. And and a lot of times you deal with something this massive or this scary per se, and you think, well, there can't be anything in that. And we kind of get stuck in our fears a bit, and as we're in our fears, we're just creating more fear. Mm-hmm. We're expanding the fear, and as much as I personally try to take the time to listen to positive material and think positively, earlier this week, I felt the fear start kind of coming in as well, because I'm reading all this stuff around the corona. It's just everywhere. And as an example, on Monday, we had a real estate closing taking place. And as we were closing, I got a text saying that the courthouses were closed. And so I was like, well, the courthouse closed. I mean, we can't record this transaction. That means even though you're signing off on all these papers, you can't own the house yet. I can't get paid because it can't disperse, so that started kind of building up a bit. Mm-hmm. Now, fortunately, courthouses are still recording real estate transactions, so is all good now. But for a few days there, they stopped. Mm-hmm. And so the next day, I started hearing other things about how interest rates was going to increase, and even though the Fed had just lowered the rates, real estate lenders started increasing the interest rates. Okay. And so seeing the rates jump sky high, that means people couldn't qualify for the same level of houses. And so that's kind of going in and just hearing all these different things. And then I started having deals not close and things of that sort. And I stopped and kind of thought about it a little bit a couple of days ago, and just kind of like, I'm not feeling right.
Right.
And so at that point, I kind of got more in my awareness and realizing that the fear, these thoughts were just kind of filling me up and controlling the way that my experiences were. And so by the time I kind of got myself aware, I started doing some little things. I put butterflies on my watch. I mean, just little things, just to help put an extra piece of peace within myself. Of course, meditating and things of that sort. And what I realized is once I got back into peace, all of a sudden real estate deals started coming back in place. Yes. And it was like the interest rates dropped back down. It was just, everything just started falling back into place. And so it was just real interesting seeing that experience and going through that experience. And I'm hoping that all of us right now are in that place where we've reconnected to who we are, so that we can take the time and say, I'm greater than this fear. What the universe is greater than this fear, and to be able to step back into our strength.
Right.
Yet chances are some of us may still be a bit in that fear.
Yeah, and I would think that, so my experience is kind of similar to yours, because I try to stay away from the media, and I even try to stay away from people who are sending things through text and Facebook and all these things that could really scare you, you know. So I try to stay away from that kind of thing, but every so often something will sneak in. But even still, not just sneak in, sometimes I will open something knowing that it's going to cause a certain reaction because I want to kind of know what other people are feeling. I don't want to really be at that far of a disconnect. You know, I'm thinking everything's hunky-dory on my end, and not realizing that some people really are in a state of fear. But I had an experience or incident similar to yours, because I think sometimes maybe you'll be okay, and then you think a thought that gets carried away, and then you'll be okay, and then you think another thought.
Right.
And so I had a situation where I woke up that morning, and instead of my brain going to the things it normally goes to, it started going to, well, what if this and what if that? And before you know it, it was this huge spiral. And ever since I was a little girl, this is kind of crazy, right? Because ever since I was a little girl, I always would prepare for calamity.
Okay.
And so whenever something did happen and people would call and be like, are you okay? I would always say, you don't ever have to worry about if I'm okay, because if everything else collapses, I'm the one that's going to survive. I'm the one that's going to be still standing, right? So I've always said that as a young person. And so
we know you still gonna be around.
So I'm one of the survivors. So if you're a survivor too, come find me. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But so my thoughts had gone way left, right? And so I was like, okay, so I don't know anything about technology, so I'm going to have to gather the people who either know about technology or the people who have the capacity to learn it very quickly. And so I'm really trying to plan a world, right? Because it's just me and a few other people, and now I'm the leader. And so as I was having this thing, I was thinking like, okay, well, what kind of world would I create? Like, what would be the ideal world? And so anyway, that takes me on a whole nother tangent, but the point being, I went there.
Yeah. And I think with all of the negative news, it's easy for all of us to kind of go into that place. And don't take this the wrong way, but because it is stuff that we have to pay attention to. You know, the coronavirus or COVID-19 is it is a serious thing. I mean, so we have to kind of take it seriously. Yeah, we can take it seriously in a place of peace,
Right.
rather than seriously in a place of fear. You know, and it was interesting just, you know, going into Kroger one time, and everybody else seemed like they was fine, but there's one guy in there with, you know, his plaid shirt on and jeans, boots, USA hat, and gun on his side, and his hand on the gun, and just looking, you know, just that in itself is adding more fear to everybody else when you're seeing that type of thing. Of course, he was in the toilet paper aisle, right? But there was no toilet paper, so I guess he was upset. But so we do have to take it seriously, and you know, still kind of keep our distancing. And
as you see, we try to do our 6 part. We're doing our part.
You know, so we have to still go by those particular things. And one of the reasons that it is spread so fast is that with this particular virus, it can spread from person to person, or it can spread from animal to person. Whereas a lot of viruses will just stay in animals, and they can't go to a people, and vice versa. But this one can spread either way. And so that's one of the reasons it's been spreading so fast. And so we have to be able to kind of keep that distance apart so that we're not overcrowding hospitals and things of that sort. And we have to also kind of, you know some of the criteria. I mean, like some of the symptoms really of the virus. You know, so if you have the dry cough and the headache and the high temperatures, those are the things to be a little bit more concerned with compared to just a sneeze, or, you know, somebody that got allergies or things of that sort. So, you know, if we kind of keep that in mind, we're not running around and, you know, we sneeze and everybody,
Right.
Oh, get away
Right.
from me.
And then to the economic impact, to me, that's what's the most scary. Is and one thing that I just found out, I'm not sure if I got it from a terrific source, but I think it was, where they say that 40% of Americans cannot take a $400 hit. So basically, 40% of Americans, if they miss $400 from pay, they are now in a place of where they're not okay financially.
I've heard that before too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, we were just talking about a lot of restaurants, for example, are actually already out of business because of this economic hit that we're taking.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, one other fear that I had just along with that is once they started closing down a lot of stuff, I called up my barber, and they was like, "Oh, no, we shut down." So I'm thinking, I can't even get a haircut for a month, right? It's gonna be back like it was in the day with the big fro, man. Hey, what's up? Can you dig it?
Yeah. So we got the physical, medical impact. We have the economic impact, and then of course we have the emotional impact, and there, of course, others like the political impact. There's so many other things that can cause it to just wreak fear within us, and really change our chemicals in our bodies, which can really cause a whole spiral of other things to go out of whack. And so it's so important that we mitigate some of our fears, know how to deal with them appropriately,
Right.
and put ourselves in a space where we know, as everyone's been saying, that this too shall pass. It's kind of like that's what we're made for. Like the human body is just such a magnificent piece of work, you
Right.
know. And like I always get teary-eyed just the thought of that I do not have to think to make my heart beat.
Right. Yeah. That's something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, to be able to breathe and things of that sort. Yeah.
Exactly. So, what are some things that you do to help keep yourself in a space of I'm okay?
So like I was just mentioned just a moment ago, you know, one of the sometimes it's just little pieces, you know, along the way. You know, have some nice flowers nearby to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody that you know is going to be more uplifting. Maybe even picking up the phone to call somebody that you know might not be, because sometimes in order to give to somebody, we have to raise our energy
Yes.
higher in order to be a giver. You know, so just sometimes it's just the little pieces. Yet I believe what helps me the most right now is taking the time to meditate. And one of the things I found, you know, before Corona, was that I was often just real busy, you know, just doing a whole lot of different stuff. And I would say sometimes, I wish I had a little bit more time to meditate.
You got it. You asked for it, you got it.
You know, and so doing, you know, being able to stop midday and just when I'm feeling, especially that disconnect, to be able to meditate for a bit and to get myself back into alignment. For me, that's a really powerful piece. And so I've been taking the time down as well to do more things like listening to, you know, YouTube videos and, you know, podcasts and, you know, just reading more books and things of that sort. So kind of pulling more of this positive information back into me, or just pouring this all in. Because if nothing else, one of the gifts, you know, this COVID-19 has given us is a freedom of time.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
we definitely have that now.
Yes, I watched some yogi, and I should know his name, but I don't. But he said to his, he has like a yogi institute, so it's like he has a lot of followers, and so he was saying to his, I don't want to call it congregation, but his people. He said, had I known that simply giving you a virus would make you be still, I would have done this a long time ago. I would have given you a virus a long time ago, because for once you're still. And, you know, obviously just the importance of being still. And it's so much, you know, we hear about meditation. We hear about that. We've been hearing about it for years. all kinds of reasons why people are saying you should meditate. But there are some real biological reasons for meditating that's been proven by science and things of that sort. And so one of the things that, and there's so many different forms of meditation, but some things are consistent with meditation that will cause your body to upload so many things that I won't go into right now. But one of the things that meditating does is cause you to be able to self-regulate much better. So the same thing that would have caused me, for example, to go haywire before I was a meditator, once I became a meditator, it would not affect me.
Right.
Yeah. And it's actually a part of your brain that develops because you're meditating. And that part of your brain allows you to self-regulate. And it was interesting. I heard a man tell a story about how he was living in California, I believe, and the fires were burning everywhere. And so his wife woke him up in the middle of the night, and they look out, and the fire is like right on them. And so they literally have time to grab their keys, their computer, and take off running to their car, and it's like embers everywhere. So they run, they get in the car, they speed away. Anyway, their whole community just burns to nothing.
Wow.
There's nothing. And so he said a day later, he and his wife were sitting in the hotel, and they were talking about, well, dang, now at least I don't have to paint that shed. And I'm glad your mama's chair got burned. So they're in there just laughing, having a good time. And so what he said was, they were in the same experience as everyone else. They lost everything. But because they had been meditating for years, they weren't having the same experience per se.
Right.
Like they were in a much better state of mind. And I was like, yeah, I feel that as well.
Yeah. And just as you were talking, I was just kind of flashing back to some of the positive news that I've been seeing. And so it was a family that's supposed to be going to Disney World before it shut down. And so they recreated one of the rides, and so they put these logs up in the yard. They was all sitting in the logs like this one of the log rides, and so in the video you see all the kids lined up, and then you see these buckets of water just. So sometimes you gotta make some fun of different things, but yeah. So it does help so you can be in the same positioning, but not have the same energetic feeling,
right?
As a lot of other people.
Right,
like.
exactly. Yeah. And that's something that people comment about a lot. Like for example, if I say I'm always happy, they're like, that's not possible. You're not living in the real world, that type of thing. And I'm like, okay, I understand what you're saying, because if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't believe it either.
Right.
But because of changes that I've made in my own life, I am always happy. Not to say bad things don't happen, but the way I experience them is totally different than how I would have in the past.
Right. And that's definitely true, and everybody can do that by taking the time to really be more present of themselves, and whether it's through meditation. And sometimes I may talk to some people that they believe in prayer, but they don't believe in meditation. So I often will say to them that prayer is when we're speaking to God. Meditation is when we're listening. So whether we're listening to God, we listen to the universe, we're just listening to this other source that's so much greater than what we may be sitting here. We want to take the time to listen to get rid of our minimal thoughts, our little thoughts that we be having in place, and so to connect to this more expansive experience.
Right.
So meditation is definitely a really powerful piece.
Yeah.
Now, you've been meditating, I think, for quite a while. Are there certain meditations that you kind of like better than others, or you think would be really helpful in a scenario like this?
So, okay. Like I say, it's all types of meditations. And I've never considered myself to be a what's the word? Like a traditional meditator. Like I'm not that person that will sit and like I'm not that person So I don't know if I'm not disciplined enough or what, but that I can't do that. So I typically meditate while I'm walking, and I'm doing things like, looking at how beautiful the leaves are, looking at how the vivid color of the flowers. So I'm like, I guess it would be kind of like a mindful meditation in a sense, because I'm paying attention to the sound of the birds and the wind and that type of thing. So that's my preferred method.
Okay.
Now, in the past several months, just because of things that's been going on in my life, I haven't been able to be outside to meditate as often as I like. So I've been doing other things. Now, sometimes I hear stuff. I could be hearing it for years and years and years, but I'm like, I tried it. It didn't really work for me. And so, and one of those things is EFT, emotional freedom tapping or something, technique or something. And so known as tapping. And we've had a couple of guests talk about tapping on the show before. And I've never been a fan. I didn't believe in it or anything like that, right? And even though it's huge, like so many people feel the power in it, I had not. But then I did this 1 minute tapping routine, and they were saying it had all these benefits, right? And so I just did it just because they said it was proven that it had all these benefits. So I was like, it's just 1 minute of my life, So, so for about 3 days a week, since about January, I have been doing this technique. And so in January, I had this big patch of gray hair right here. I mean, it wasn't huge, but, it was enough for me to be concerned. Like, why you got all this gray hair going on? So anyway, I've been doing the tapping technique, and it just started seeming like the hair wasn't as gray anymore. I was like, is that my imagination? And so then I had pulled a piece, and when I pulled it, it was black at the root and gray at the top. And I was like, my hair is turning black again.
Okay.
And so I'm like, what am I doing differently? And so that was one of the things. So because of that, I'm going to show you guys real quick.
Okay. So maybe later on I won't have all this.
But that looks so good on you. Yeah, so it's just really quick, and the only thing you're thinking about is releasing all the tension from your body, right? So as you're tapping, you just tap on the side of your hand here.
Am I doing 3 fingers, 4 fingers? Do it matter?
I'm not sure if it matters right here. Like here, the guy looked like he was just doing just this, tapping on the side of his hand. And probably somewhere between 15 and 20 taps, but I don't count. So you just tap, 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 and you just imagine yourself releasing all the tension from your body. And then you tap the top of your head. All the tension is being released from your body. Now you with the 2 fingers, and you're right on your bone between your eye and your nose. Imagine all the tension being released. Go to the side of your eye here. All the tension being released. Underneath. Upper lip. Underneath lip. On your collarbone, where your kind of like your breastbone and collarbone meet. And you're still just, all tension is being released from your body. About 4 inches underneath your armpit. Back to your hand. And that's a wrap.
I feel better already. I didn't even realize I was tense, but I definitely feel more released.
Yeah, and even while I'm talking you through it, I'm feeling myself. Yeah, Yeah, and you might not feel it when you're doing it, because I definitely didn't. I was just doing it. But once they were like, once I was like, wait a minute, my hair, my hair turning black. I was
Going real fast. How much more time can I do this?
so that's one of the things. And then I know you're familiar with heart math.
A little bit, yes.
Okay, so do you want to show them how to do heart math, or would you like me?
I only know a little bit about it, and that's one of the things that's been kind of coming up a lot for me lately. I've been hearing people mention it and seeing the little pieces here and there, but I don't know the whole process. So if you know it, I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, and again, that's a really simple process, and I think we also did this before on an episode. And with heart math, basically the thinking behind it, not the thinking, is the science behind it, is that the heart is your center where you have the most electromagnetic energy. So it used to be the thinking was that it was the brain for years and years and years, but they've recently shown that it's the heart. And so the heart controls the brain, and the heart is actually the first organ in your body that develops. So that's the first thing that shows up in the fetus, is the heart. And so, if the brain was controlling everything, then the brain would have been
Makes sense.
the first organ. So yeah, and so we tend to be very brain centered. So heart math has developed a technique to help us to become heart centered. And so we're actually connecting the heart and the brain through their technique. And when you're coherent, your heart and brain is coherent, that's when things tend to happen faster. So a lot of times we talk about positive thinking, think positive, but that's not the whole story.
Right.
Because that's a brain process. That's why I always talk about feeling. You have to feel it, right? So you want to see it and feel it. And so that's where the heart comes in. So with heart math, again, it's a very simple process, and they recommend at least 3 minutes of doing it. And so basically, first thing you want to do, of course, is you're going to close your eyes and you take some clearing breaths. And then you're going to connect with your heart. And the way to connect with your heart is actually to touch your heart. So you put your fingers on, you can put your hand on it. But touch your heart. You can also do a prayer mudra. And like a lot of cultures, you think you're like this, like you're praying, but really what you're doing is putting the energy centers together. So this is like connecting all of your energy centers, and you put it on your chest to touch your heart. So that's the first step, is just to connect the brain and the heart. Then you want to slow your breathing down to breathe in maybe like 5 or 6 seconds, and then slowly breathe out 5 or 6 seconds, and just continue to do that very slowly. Breathe in and breathe out, and you're slowing your breathing down because that is giving your body the signal that you're okay. Because if you weren't in a safe environment, you wouldn't be able to slow your breath down like that. So that's just signaling your body that you're okay, everything's fine. That's step 2. And then step 3 is to create a wonderful feeling in your body, such as the feeling of love, the feeling of appreciation, the feeling of gratitude. And you're just going to feel that you can just send love out, or gratitude or appreciation to something or someone. And so again, you're going to do this for 3 minutes. So step 1 is to close your eyes and get centered with your heart. Put your hand on your heart. Step 2 is to slow your breathing down. And then step 3 is to create that feeling of gratitude or appreciation or compassion or love. and then you just keep that feeling in your body for 3 minutes. And there you go. Welcome back.
Can I just stay there? Wow.
Yes. And so for people who aren't ready to try to, just breathe for 10 minutes or 30 minutes or however long, you can just start off with something just that simple, and it will calm you, will send different signals in your body, and it will create that develop that part of your brain that will help you to self-regulate your emotions and experiences.
Yeah, nice. So it is what I was kind of getting at the feeling of, and even though I don't know the actual statistics, I know there's some science around when you're slowing down your breath and focusing your energy through your heart like that and feeling that levels of gratitude, that it actually helps to boost your immune system as well.
So, Scott, oh my gosh, we are so out of time. There was so many other things I wanted to hit on this episode. So maybe we'll do another episode.
Hey.
We say we're tired of it, but it's just so much to be said. Yeah, but of course we want to make sure we mitigate our fears. Go ahead and start doing some of these meditation techniques if you aren't already meditating, because that can help tremendously in so many ways that you really would be surprised about. And so I think the main message that we've already talked about, we didn't get to a lot of the stuff, but the main message is to find ways to keep yourself out of fear. And Scott mentioned some things like reading books, positive energy, sharing yourself with the community, what can you do for service, and taking the time to be still. So until next time, this is Arvat.
This is Scott.
See you later.
All right.